look at what Tom's going through this year.
Yeah,
There's no perfect way to stick the landing in football. It's just like you're so lucky if you can finish your career exactly how you want to finish it.
I mean, the only guy that's ever really, had the walk-off was Elway.
Yeah.
His last game was a Super Bowl championship and world championship and gets to walk away. But other than that, it almost never ends perfectly.
Football always humbles you.
It does, doesn't it?
All right, so this has been fun, man. I've been catching up with somebody I really long admired and watch your career and see how you handle yourself after ball, all the stuff you've been into. Drew Bledsoe, 4-time Pro Bowler, absolute Patriots legend. Real Patriots fans, not the hipsters that came along post-2000.
The old guys that sat on the metal bleachers and had to stand in line for 45 minutes for a bathroom. Those guys are they recognize.
That's where I want to start, man, because we were just bullshitting offline about Foxborough, and I spent a year there, and I lived on North Road.
Yeah.
Which we were triangulating, I think, was by y'all's old.
It was right by our old practice facility. People don't understand what that was like back then. We would literally get dressed in our pads and then get in our own cars and drive 5 miles to an abandoned mental hospital.
Yeah.
And that's where we practiced.
Yeah.
And then we'd get all dirty, and then you'd get back in your car and drive back all sweaty and stuff. And there were even a couple accidents because, of course, guys are going to be aggressive driving back, so you end up racing each other back to, a couple of guys, a couple little fender benders, guys trying to race back to the stadium.
Who was the fastest driver on those teams?
Oh, I don't know. Probably Zolak. He had this old.
That makes a lot of sense.
He had this old red Corvette that he with his gargoyles and his Zubas, and thought he was just sweet as hell, and so he'd race back in his red Corvette.
That dude's an absolute legend.
Mm-hmm.
Zolak, I get to meet him a little bit when I was up there. But yeah, the facility was crazy.
Oh, it was crazy. Yeah, back then it was. The other one was we get to get drafted. Big deal, finally in the NFL. And when we get there for rookie minicamp, we were staying at the End Zone Motor Inn down the street from the stadium, which, it was just this little dive motel.
Yeah.
And, it was like right before, this is how old I am, this is right before cell phones came out.
Yeah.
And so if you wanted to call home, they had basically one line out. So you had to start dialing and hear a busy signal, dial, busy signal, dial, busy signal. And then if you got somebody on the phone, you had to talk to him for a while because you didn't know if you could even dial out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, this is the NFL?
Yeah.
What in the world?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, it's nuts. I mean, just driving to the practice facility is totally unheard of. People listening at home, everything's in one place.
Absolutely.
Now it's man, I'd complain when I was in New England, not too much because the facility was great. My only complaint about the facility is there's no windows in that fucking thing.
Yeah. You're in the dungeon. You're in the dungeon.
It's by design. But the walk to the practice facility was long by NFL standards. All the way from that really pristine facility all the way through the bottom of the stadium because New England's unique in this way, at least, where truly everything right now is in one place. And Robert's trying to do the whole Patriot place. You got Toby Keith's Steakhouse out there. You can watch ball game. Yeah. Our practice facilities there, our meeting rooms. So it's just crazy to see how different facilities are now. And we've been talking a lot about turf fields and
there was some dangerous stuff back in the day, man. I mean, I think the worst ever was the Vet before they knocked that down in Philly.
Yeah.
That turf was like playing on concrete with a little bit of carpet on it, and then it had seams and stuff in it.
Yeah.
That and then the baseball infields were awful. Matter of fact, I've still got my one kind of noticeable injury, my separated left shoulder from the infield at Candlestick from Ken Norton Jr.
Yeah.
Bob Cratch, I'll never forgive you for turning down Ken Norton in the A-gap and letting him fucking pile drive me into
dude. But he's a free runner.
A free runner in the A-gap is not good. That's never fun,
especially when the linebackers were 255
and angry.
Yeah,
and that's actually when you could actually hit quarterbacks too.
Yeah,
I don't know how guys in your line of work, how do you rush the passer now where you got to get there and then you've got to put him down really gently.
Yeah,
and if there's even some of the calls you see now where guy will come in and instead of driving the quarterback in the ground, I think this happened with Tommy, has to roll over. But then if you roll over too hard and then you slam him into the ground, that's a penalty. I don't know how guys do.
Grady Jarrett.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a Chris Jones, roughing that was real bad.
Yeah.
Within a 2-week span. Yeah. And I kind of wonder because like you walked in earlier. I know you're a big guy, but you're bigger than me.
Yeah.
All right. Like, how the fuck am I supposed to tackle you gentle? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, if I were back in the day, you know, it'd be all above board, and you took some shots, man. Like, you know, but nowadays when you watch the game, how does that affect the game for you as a viewer? Like, how do you feel about it?
So there's two sides to it. Number one, I think it's the right thing for the business of football, right? Because you want these stars on the field. You know, you don't want to, you know, show up to Chiefs game and not get to watch Patrick Mahomes. You know, you don't want to go to Buffalo and not get to see Josh Allen. So from the business of football, it's the right thing. But man, it kind of doesn't feel like football sometimes, though. You know, I mean, for me as a quarterback, the only way that I could be tough was to take the big shot and then get back up and keep playing. There was a good interview with Bruce Smith that I listened to a couple of years ago, and they were asking him, you know, so he had 200 sacks or however many sacks he had, and they asked him, you know, would you have more or less, you know, sacks if you played today? And he goes, well, they throw the ball about 30% more, so I'd probably have more sacks. But of all the sacks that I had, over half of them would have been penalties, you know, today. And most of those against me, by the way.
They were. How many times do you think Bruce sacked you?
Thankfully, I had a guy that should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Bruce Armstrong, who was matched up against him. Matter of fact, I talked to your dad about Army one time, and he goes, hey, if you talk to Bruce, will you tell him he had the best punch on a drive block of anybody ever played against? Bruce was a guy that he was a certified badass. And so those two, you know, it's funny, man, and I know you'll get this illusion, but it was almost like, you know, the old cartoons with the sheepdog and the coyote, where they'd go punch the clock and then they'd try to kill each other, you know, at work, and then they'd punch the clock and they'd, okay, well, say hi to the fam on the way home.
We're cool.
But Bruce and Bruce, when they would match up, that was a great matchup. So thankfully, you know, Bruce Smith didn't hit me that many times. But he did give me my welcome to the NFL hit at Buffalo. You know, one of those slow-mo, you know, I think I was the star of his Nike commercial the next year.
Really?
He put his helmet right between my shoulder blades, and they had the slow-mo shot of my head snapping back, you know, and again, that would have been, he might have been thrown out of the game for that one.
Right.
But then it was legal.
No, it's amazing how quickly it's happened. And you were asking, like, what was it like for me? In the beginning of my career, it was pretty chill. Like, we could still hit guys. I mean, you know, you couldn't drill them in the head. That started, and I get that.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you know, I don't want guys being, you know, but by the end of it, it was my last year. I can remember the opener. We played Atlanta, and I landed on Matt Ryan. Just a good, clean fucking drive, you know, like through the midsection.
Just a football hit.
And I'm looking up, and I'm like, is this me? This flag is me? Like, that was when I realized, hey, it's probably a good time to get out, man. You know, it's funny, too, because it's it can be dangerous for you guys. You know, you come in and all of a sudden you're trying not to hit them, so now you're twisting and trying to take it easy on the quarterback, and all of a sudden you put yourself in harm's way because you're twisting in a way to try to. So it's good for the game, but there are times when I look at it like, come on, man, like dude, you know, this is football. It's physical. You should have to take a hit. Well, like, you know, I hate comparing and doing all that, but like inevitably as competitors, we compare looking back at our careers and looking at the people that play now, and you know, you got to wonder, like, damn, if they couldn't touch me.
If you couldn't hit if you can't hit the quarterbacks, you can't touch the receivers. You know, playing quarterback, it's a lot easier. But again, it makes it more fun to watch. But I am a little bit jealous. I'll be honest. I'm a little bit jealous.
Dude. I mean, I'm jealous. I'm jealous of some of the. I think the O-line play's gotten worse too.
The O-line play, well, they just don't hit anymore. You know, so they you know, a lot of times they won't. You know, I mean, what do they have? Like, I think they can only have like 7 full padded practices before the season starts or something crazy like that. And so I would imagine that would play into, you know, more success for a defensive lineman because these guys aren't used to contact.
No, they're not. And, you know, the ball's being thrown a lot and that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, the other side of it, as an aside, and this is where I'm not jealous of guys, the run game is now, they're getting the run game in these totally exotic ways.
Oh, yeah.
Everything's more sideline to sideline.
Yeah,
like
for
that,
sure.
That was another thing late in my career. I was like, man, like, I'm not that fast. And it was like standing on a freeway watching these jet sweeps and these bubbles and like, give me a power, give me a counter.
Like, can't you just line up and run straight at me and let this be a man-on-man thing?
Exactly.
And, you know, and see who's meaner, see who's tougher. And instead it's you know, coming at you from all kinds of different angles.
Exactly.
And,
it's a thinking game. You know, when it comes to the physicality, like, how's your body feel now?
You know, honestly, Chris, I should knock on wood. You know, my body's feels better than a lot of my buddies that are my age that didn't play.
Yeah.
So just lucky from that standpoint. But the other thing, it's kind of funny, man. I've always been a skier, so I skied from the time I was 2 years old, and I think that helped me stay healthy in like two ways. Number one is kind of stability in my knees and so on, but I knew how to fall.
Yeah.
You know, like
that's a real skill.
It is, you know, and plus, you know, when I played at Washington State, I got hit a little bit, so I kind of learned that too. But you know, you watch guys that go down that if they haven't been hit a lot, you go down and you put your arm out to catch yourself,
right.
I just understood how to kind of, you know, pull things in and just roll with it.
My dad used to make fun of me because I was a bad faller. You know, I'd jump over a pile and land just directly on my shoulder.
Yeah.
He was like, man, it was, you know, it's tough watching you play. I mean, it's stressful watching your kid play, but
for sure,
the most stressful part was watching you hit the ground because I could not fall. What's up with the skiing thing? You had that in a contract? Did you really have that written into a contract that you could ski?
So I made a mistake after my second year. Mr. Kraft had just bought the team, and I made the mistake of telling him, because I was stupid, about this really cool heli skiing trip I took my dad on. And I remember now in retrospect, I was telling him about this amazing trip, and he was kind of looking at me funny. And so in my next contract, they had very strict language written in there for how much money I had to pay him back if I got hurt skiing.
How much was it? Do you remember?
It was a lot. It was sort of graduated, but it was like if it was year one, I had to pay him back most of my signing bonus if I got hurt skiing.
Did you stop skiing?
Of course not.
That's what I fucking figured. That's what I figured.
No, we found a Lloyd's of London underwriter that would insure me for 30 days a year.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I had an agreement with my ski buddies in Montana. Like, all right, here's the deal. If I'm dying, call ski patrol. If I'm not dying, you guys find a way to get me off the mountain. Mm-hmm. We'll go down to the gym. We'll put on some basketball shoes, and I'll get hurt playing basketball.
That's so fucking brilliant. I mean, that's great that you had that pack.
Yeah,
because you know teams are trying to get over on us, right?
For sure.
Man, I'm out living my life. I'm skiing. This is what I like to do. This is my happy place.
Absolutely.
You would have hit you would have been down the mountain. They would have put you under a bar and been like, look, he was doing a power clean.
Yeah, power cleaning, and his knee went out.
It's so great, dude.
The funny thing is, though, they would write all that stuff into our contracts that we couldn't do. The most dangerous thing that we ever did was the charity basketball games we used to go play. Did you ever play in any of those?
No, because I wasn't good enough.
Well, I'm not good at basketball either.
I was a sixth man on my high school team.
Yeah, me too. But we would go do this, and so you go play against the firemen or the cops or whatever, and for them, it's the Super Bowl, and we're out there just kind of trying to have fun. Yeah. Next thing you know, they're undercutting you on a layup.
Yeah.
And like, but that was sponsored by the team. I'm like, dude, this is way more dangerous than skiing.
The quarterback club stuff and all that stuff. Did you ever do any of that quarterback club stuff?
Yeah,
they used to have skills challenges, and then somebody got hurt on the beach, and like.
Yeah, there was the quarterback challenge was actually really fun.
Was that fun?
It was really
like guys
fun
like
because
doing that.
Yeah, and for the quarterbacks, you're just throwing the ball and running around a little bit. It's not that there was no risk to it. But the cool thing about that was it was like the one time a year where all the quarterbacks got to hang out with each other.
Yeah,
you know, because normally you see guys on the field, you know, and especially for me when I was young, you know, because when I broke into the league, you know, it was still Elway and Marino and Troy and Steve Young and Joe Montana and all these guys that were on the Mount Rushmore of football for me. Those guys were drafted when I was like 10 or 11. We were talking about that earlier. That was like when that draft happened was right when I started watching football. And so for me, you know, I got to go hang out with John Elway.
Yeah.
I got to go hang out with Dan Marino.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like, you know, it was like hanging out with Superman, you know? And so for me, that was a really, really cool experience. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer they don't do some of that stuff still. I think they do a little bit, but I don't think it's as organized as it used to be.
Who was cool? Like who were you like, man, that guy treated me you know, like was there one impactful other vet in the league?
Elway was really, really kind to me.
Yeah.
You know, we'd you know, sit up by the pool and drink Dewars with John Elway and like, dude, this is, you know, it's like, and most of the guys were really, really cool though. Danny Marino was cool. Yeah. He was great. You know, Joe Montana was incredibly kind. I will tell you though, the most starstruck I ever was we were at some event, and I got to meet Namath.
Oh man!
And I'm like, I mean, I'm talking. This is after I'd been in the league for probably 4 or 5 years, something like that. But I like almost couldn't talk.
Right.
You know, I was kind of just so nervous, and then he was just the kindest dude ever. You know, chatted for like 10 minutes, but yeah, that was one time like after all of it that I was definitely starstruck. Was meeting.
It's happened to me a couple times when I like met Julius Peppers and stuff.
Right.
And he was the coolest guy in the world. And it's just like you think about that when you meet a younger player or somebody else, like you know, just it's a big brotherhood ultimately. Which I think
absolutely.
So with Jim Kelly, man, because he was,
I love Jim.
I really like Jim too, man. I got a chance to meet him a couple times, just like, and as a player, man, I respect him and just everything they went through there.
Yeah. And
I know you were what, 94 or 93?
I was 93 draft. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like at that point, they're in the middle of it, right?
They're in the middle of it. That was my first start was at Buffalo.
Yeah.
And I had just watched them play in the Super Bowl like 4 months prior.
Yeah.
So I'm out on the field. First of all, here comes Bruce Smith down the tunnel, and I'm like, dude, I'm in the wrong place. I don't belong here. And then here comes Jim, you know, running down the tunnel, and he just runs by and slaps me on the ass. Like, hey, good luck, Rook.
That's funny.
And now we're great friends. He's still so present in Buffalo, and he definitely was for the 3 years that I was there. And he was always around and just incredibly kind and gracious. And got to see him recently, and it was just a blessing to see him, because I didn't realize his second bout with cancer. Yeah. The doc gave him like a 5% chance to live. It's like incredible. he was gone. Yeah. And now he's back, and he's mostly healthy now. So it was great to see him.
He gathers no moss, man. That dude enjoys staying on the move, and I love it.
Absolutely.
Just love being around the guy. He's just great energy, man.
Yeah, him and all his brothers and everybody was around, and it was he was awesome.
Did you feel for them being on the other side of it, or did you hate the Bills because they were in division? Like when they go play in a Super Bowl? Because I remember, we used to beat up on the Seahawks,
right?
And we were like fucking 6-10, you know, 2-14, whatever. But they always come to town and we'd beat them,
right?
Or play them tough. And then they were San Francisco, same thing. Then those teams would go play in the Super Bowl. Yeah. And I was jealous. You know, I was.
For sure.
I remember sitting in a hotel room in Miami, drinking beers with my buddy, rooting so hard against the Seahawks when they beat the hell out of the Broncos. Of course, that didn't go real well. And I can remember being in Mexico, rooting for damn Patriots and the Malcolm Butler pick, because I did not want to see those teams in my division win. But for you, like, did you have empathy for that team?
I did, you know, I mean, yes, I would say I had a certain degree of empathy for them. And it was also, you know, we always played them pretty tough, you know. And so there was also, all right, well, you know, if somebody's going to win it, I wanted it to be a team that we could go head to head with. So there was that piece of it. But that rivalry, I always enjoyed that rivalry. If you did, you know, you know, first of all, you know, you're going to go to Buffalo and they're going to throw snowballs and other things at the bus on the way in, and
dildos on the field now.
Yeah, exactly. And although I think we were pre dildo.
I don't think.
I don't think they were throwing dildos quite then yet. Although, but I think the funniest one we were driving out of the stadium, Buffalo, and we had won the game, and this old lady BA'd us. Like, she was probably 75, 80 years old, and just boom, drops her pants and BA's the bus. I'm like, dude, we're in a different spot here.
Yeah.
You know, so I always, those were all, and we had a lot of good games with the Bills too. So, you know, it was a good rivalry, and obviously for me there was an extra level of importance. You know, at that point, you know, when we played the Bills. You know, that's Jim Kelly over there. Yeah. That was my hero. You know, I had his poster, right? Yeah. And then we go play the Dolphins, and like, that's Dan Marino. You know, I want to get his autograph.
That's crazy.
I want to get his autograph. You know,
that's crazy.
And then we're competing. So that was, for me, that was, you know, that was pretty cool.
The Bills, man, like you spent time there. Yeah. And we were just talking about their fan base, and like the fan base is, to me, like, I was really blessed to play in Philly.
Yeah.
because it just gave me such a, like, this is what it's about. Like, and I don't know if you felt the same thing, because I see a lot of similarities in those fan bases. Different, but like they're so passionate and they just act out and they're crazy. Do you still feel that kinship?
I do. And, you know, those fans in Buffalo, first of all, it was like playing pro ball in a college town, you know, being in Buffalo, you know, smaller town, a little bit like Green Bay maybe.
Yeah.
But you were just part of the community. If if you're at a bar, at a restaurant, you know, somebody's like, hey man, good luck this week. All right, cool. And that was about it.
Yeah.
Or if you were there, if somebody bought you a beer, you were expected to buy them a beer back, right? It wasn't like this, you know, fanboy stuff. You were just part of the community, and that was. But I do feel like I am cheering for the Bills. You know, that fan base. You know, to lose 4 in a row and to still be as passionate and as loyal as they are. You know, they get 150,000 people for their tailgate parties, and only 70,000 can go in the stadium, right? So you got 80,000 people that are just partying in the parking lot during the game. That first home game we played in Buffalo came in early Wednesday morning, and I asked the equipment guys, I'm like, hey, what's going on? Is it an RV show or what is it? Like, no, those people are tailgating. They would get there on Tuesday to tailgate for a Sunday game.
That's sick.
Yeah, it's crazy.
In a good way.
Right? It's crazy.
How cold is it when they're out there?
No, man. They know how to do it, right? They got the big bonfires and the big, you know, RVs with the heaters and the TVs, and you know they do it right. But yeah, if the Bills, you know, it looks like they've got a shot at it, you know, this year. If they end up going on to win a championship, I'll definitely be cheering for them.
What's that UCL injury like? Josh has got one right now, I guess. And as we tape, and people might not hear this till after the game, Minnesota and Buffalo play tomorrow, and that Josh has got an elbow thing. Yeah, you know, like how hard is that? The thing I think we always discount with quarterbacks is how sore your arms are. You know, like we think about it, is he banged up? Is he injured? But like just how much are you throwing the ball? Like, you know, like how do you manage that?
Yeah, for me, I always liked throwing a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I was, you know, games I was always throwing on the sidelines because it's, you know, I mean, it's not like throwing a baseball. You know, you're not breaking down your arm throwing a football because it's just a slower motion.
Okay.
But that particular injury, if I understand it correctly, I mean, that's why you get Tommy John surgery, right? And you know, the biggest thing that I'm curious to see, and it looked like there was impact late in that game, just on his accuracy. Yeah, you know, because if that hurts, that you know you can be as tough as you want, but you can't fight the pain reflex. Right. And so you go to throw a ball, and it you know your
body guards.
It flinches up. Yeah. To protect your body, and it's just it'll be interesting to see if he can still be accurate when he comes back and plays, and then. You know, I mean, in baseball, you know, you're shut down until you get Tommy John surgery. You're out for a year, right? So I'll be really curious because I don't have knowledge or experience of what that injury is like for a quarterback.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because the last couple of weeks, he's just some of the balls that are gimmies he's missed, and I don't know if it's like sometimes a focus thing or, you know, I'm a huge Josh fan. Oh, like he's just, I mean, he's amazing, and his leadership and the whole thing. Yeah. But anyways, Bill Parcells, man, and you've played for two of the biggest hard asses in the history of coaching, and then like one of the most lovable guys, it seems like, in Pete Carroll. Yeah. But the Parcells era, you guys go to a Super Bowl. Yeah. My burning question about that whole thing, not only is like how tough was it playing for Bill Parcells, but also what was it like game planning for Reggie White?
So here's what's crazy, Chris. All right, and this is real, and I want. So we're getting ready to play the Packers in the Super Bowl, and Max Lane was our right tackle. Max, big old strong farm boy from Missouri, who actually had a really good year that year. Yeah. But we decided, not me, that we were going to block Reggie one-on-one. And the rationale, and this is no bullshit, I'm not making this up, the rationale was that Reggie doesn't like to play on turf, which, first of all, I'd never heard. And second, they're like, well, it's the Super Bowl. I think we're probably going to get his best. And so, you know, back-to-back plays, you know, Max, who's blocking arguably the greatest pass rusher, you know, at least to that point, back-to-back plays, Max gets thrown out of the bar, and I get sacked, you know, on the 4-step of my 5-step drop. And so he comes to the sidelines and he goes, okay, now can we get some help? And,
I tried.
Yeah, he's like, hey, I gave him my best. Yeah. I'm 330 pounds, and Reggie threw me out of the bar.
Yeah.
Let's get some help. And so we gave him some help, and then we had a little more success. But Reggie, and he was also so damn frustrating because he would come in and knock the crap out of you. Like, hey, God bless you, Drew. I'm like, hey, Reg, Reg, you can't do what you just did to me and then say God bless you. You can say it after the game.
Andrew Luck situation. We used to hit Andrew Luck, and he'd be like, "Great hit, buddy."
Right?
What the fuck?
Like, what, dude? Come on, I just tried to hurt you.
Save it, yeah, bro, save it.
Yeah, right. So funny.
Was Reggie the most? Like you played Bruce. You know he'd affect the game.
Yep.
Like you probably played Derek Thomas. You played some of these like iconic rushers.
Yeah. Reggie was probably the biggest problem.
The scariest?
Just because he had so much speed combined with so much power.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So he could speed rush.
Yeah.
But then I don't know. I mean, at least to that area, I'm not sure if there was a better bull rush also. Yeah. So when you put that combination, man, that's hard. Yeah. That's hard.
That week it was New Orleans, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that like? Because I feel like back then, no camera phones.
Right.
None of this shit. Like when we went to Minnesota to play in the Super Bowl, first off, it's Minnesota.
Right.
Like we're not going anywhere.
Right.
Half the team's sick anyways. It's so fucking cold.
Right.
We're in the Mall of America. When we were in Houston, that was great. But like, in today's day and age, like you're under a microscope so much. Like what's game week like in the 90s for a Super Bowl?
It was both Super Bowls that we went to are both in New Orleans, which was just ironic. But we had some freedom, we could, at least until like, I don't think it was until like Wednesday or Thursday, we could go out.
Dudes are having fun.
Yeah. We were having fun, and we had curfew, but guys were out having fun and running up and down Bourbon Street and going to dinner. And there was more freedom from that standpoint because, you didn't have every single person on the street with a video camera that they could immediately put out to the whole world. Yeah. I think, obviously today guys have to be much more careful about where they are, what they're doing, and keep it pretty buttoned up. So yeah, we had fun.
I just imagine as a quarterback, it's hard to be like, all right, we're going down to New Orleans for the Super Bowl. All you 22-year-old guys, we're going to be like, on our P's and Q's. Like, fuck out of here. No, we're not. Yeah.
Like, no, guys were having fun. There was actually one teammate who will remain nameless who missed the bus to practice the day after. That didn't go very well with Parcells, as you can imagine. He was a hard ass. He was a hard ass. He was he was funny as long as he wasn't talking to you. Yeah. I mean he would if he started to get after you or get after somebody, he would embarrass the hell out of you. Yeah. And also it was, you talk about different from now. Dude, those training camps then for the guys that were hitting, it was nonstop battle. It was, uppers in the morning and full pads in the afternoon. And we would go live goal line every other day. Yeah. Like full on tackle to the ground, live practice. Yeah. Can you imagine if, today, you're not, hey, we're going to go live today. Guys wouldn't even know what that means.
I don't know how the vets back in the day kept it together, their bodies.
One of the things that I think did happen is I do think that the wear and tear affected us sometimes late in the season, just because guys are you're playing games and then you've got a game on Thursday. Yeah.
You guys run pads on Thursday.
Yeah.
Pads every day. Pads Friday?
Yeah. No, usually not. A lot of times we would just go uppers on Fridays. Yeah. But Wednesday, Thursday were full pads.
But shoulder pads on Fridays.
Shoulder pads on Friday.
So this is the funny thing, because like nowadays, as a D lineman, like pads and uppers were the same thing to me. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Like there was no shells for y'all back then. Shells being like, hey, we're taking the shoulder pads off.
Yeah, you just got the little just the little pads or whatever. Yeah. No, that was always kind of funny to me also. Yeah. Like, well, we're just gonna wear shoulder pads. Yeah. Like, well, that's the same thing. Yeah. So yeah, I do think that that wear and tear did add up over the course of a season. Where guys, especially some of the vets that have been around, I'm not sure it was totally necessary for them to be banging as much as they did. Yeah. But that's just what it was. That's what football was. It was, who can withstand the most punishment.
What's the biggest difference between Bill and Bill?
It's interesting because outwardly it looks very different. Outwardly, Parcells loved being in front of the camera. He loved the media. He loved, doing all that stuff. Big personality, loud, Jersey Godfather type dude. And then, Belichick is just notorious for being so dry, does not give anything to the media whatsoever. But in terms of what they demanded, it's the same. It was competitiveness, accountability, attention to detail, all of those things that allow, a team or a player to be successful. Those things were exactly the same. Yeah. I will say that the level of detail and the level of analysis with Belichick, and that's, he's famous for that, was another level. Yeah. And Parcells, actually, I don't think he ever won a playoff game without Belichick. And because, Belichick was one guy that he, really respected enough and trusted and so Belichick really, helped from that standpoint. But no, I mean, it was largely the same. Same with Pete, Pete Carroll, Pete.
Just window dressing's different.
Yeah. Just on the surface, it's different. But in terms of what actually goes into being successful, those things are largely the same.
How happy are you for Pete this year?
I'm so happy for him, man. Pete, I think everybody that played for Pete, everybody loves him. Yeah. I think there aren't very many people that played for Pete that would not be cheering for him.
I know one. I know one guy. He's in Denver. But
that's true. That's true.
Otherwise,
that's true. Yeah. But what the Seahawks did this year, they nailed the draft.
Yeah. Oh my God.
They got and they're set up now for a run because they got 2 rookie tackles that are both kicking ass. Yeah. And so now you don't have to pay those guys for 4 years. Yeah. And then they got 2 or 3 defensive guys that look like they could be Pro Bowlers that are rookies. Right. And so if you got those young guys and you don't have to pay them, now you've got all that salary cap space, to spend on the rest of your squad. So I think they're set up, whether they make a real run this year or not, they're set up over the next 3, 4, 5 years to really do something.
When you see somebody like Geno Smith, do what he's doing, are you like, that was always there? Or is it like, context, perfect storm is always seems to be like people don't take enough into, account like the context around a player.
For sure.
And maybe he this was in him, but he's never had the right context. Yeah. So, like, what do you take from a quarterback that's been in the league a decade and now all of a sudden, here it is?
You know what? Well, your first point is super valid. The fact that they've got all those pieces around, that helps a lot. But Geno has also really evolved. Yeah. And there was Mark Sanchez was actually talking about, because he was doing one of their games, and I listened to him talk about it because I think he was in New York when Geno was drafted, and he said, he goes, the guy that I met as a rookie and the guy that I watched as a rookie is not the same guy that's playing now. And he asked him about it, and he goes, Geno, what's going on? He goes, I've been working. Yeah. Because I think there was a lot of work to do. Yeah. And so, credit to him for being a professional and working at his craft so that when this opportunity came up, he was ready for it. But it's been definitely an evolution in his play, in addition to being a part of a team that's kicking ass.
Hell yeah, dude! I'm pretty happy for him. And then with the Mac Jones, the Zappy thing, the Chicago game, because I bet the Pats big that night, of course,
of course, and
watch the whole thing. And Justin Fields looked awesome. But like, are you a fan of? Like you've been a quarterback who's had to deal with change, and you've had to step in and step out. Like Mac, to me, being in and out of that game, the 2 offensive coordinators. Like I've never heard it. Like with all due respect to my former coaches, because I love Joe and I love Matt and Bill. Yeah, but like that doesn't feel like it's.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? Like it doesn't feel like continuity in that game. Yeah, dude, I wasn't watching that game. I saw the result. Yeah. And I'm like, well, that's a typo. Yeah. They flipped it. It had to be the Patriots 131-0. I couldn't believe that. That shocked the heck out of me. But I think it's interesting there. Look, I think Mac Jones is I I think he's a really good player.
Yeah.
He's doing all the right things.
Yeah.
But it's a fickle league, especially at that. If you're a quarterback, and somebody was telling me like one of the games that he was getting crushed for.
Yeah.
Like he actually graded out well in that game. I can't remember which game it was, but it was like he wouldn't watch the film, and he actually graded out well in that game. They just didn't play well around him.
I think quarterback's the hardest position for and I would count myself in this because I don't know what the hell's going on. Like I'm not in the quarterback meeting room. I don't know which way the guy's supposed to run an option route. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so hard to handicap as a fan sitting at home. Like, when it throws off.
Yeah.
Was the throw off? Is there something wrong with it?
Absolutely. Well, it's like we were talking earlier about what's going on in Tampa with Tom. And all of a sudden, you lose Jensen to your center to start the season, and for Tom, that's maybe the most important guy on the field because he needs to step up into a pocket, and all of a sudden, you don't have that guy anchor in the middle of the line, and your running game's not as strong.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, that extra half a second or that extra half a yard of space, to actually throw the ball makes a big difference, especially for a guy like Tom. And then you see the same thing with Aaron in Green Bay.
Yeah.
They're I don't think they've been as good in the offensive line as they should be. And then he's got a bunch of young receivers, and so Aaron's remarkably accurate most of the time. But you can be super accurate to a spot where a guy's supposed to be, and he's not there.
He's not there.
Yeah. Then you're like, okay.
And all the margins are slim.
The margins are so tight, and the one thing that I do think though with Aaron is that we got a bachelorette party. We got a bachelorette party.
You sure that's bachelorette?
I don't know. Maybe she's dressed like that for attention.
Oh,
I don't know.
I didn't see the. Oh yeah, it's a cool hat.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, she can't hear us. They can't hear us. So
the one thing I will say with Aaron, he's not around very much in the offseason. And when you got young receivers, that would be the only criticism that I would have is that, okay, you got young receivers, let's get there in the offseason and develop some rapport with these guys.
Yeah, and listen, Aaron's fucking must-see TV, dude.
For sure.
I mean, he's amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't blame everything on him this year.
Of course not.
Now, he likes things simple, right? Like, he likes his offense simple.
Yeah.
And there's been, a tug-of-war over the scheme there.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I'm not a big fan of is, after a game, hey, you have the receivers are right there.
Yeah.
You walk right over to them and tell them they need to be better.
Yeah.
I don't like the podium stuff.
Yeah, the podium stuff is that's awkward. That, and then the podcast deal during the week. It's like it's like let's I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of calling guys out publicly.
That's my only thing. And I know he's a good teammate. I'm sure those guys appreciate him. I'm sure he's saying whatever he's saying.
He's also saying it to them, and so
But I do think there's a better way to do it.
And I do too, and but I will say one thing that really did surprise me though, that he did say publicly, and whether he should have said it publicly or not, that's the debate. But said they had 18 mental errors, in one game. Dude, I coached high school football for 6 years, and in high school we would go through entire games without a mental error.
Right.
And so if you got pro football players that are making mental errors, it's too complicated.
Yeah.
You're asking them to think too much, and so I think that's where if in fact there are 18 mental errors on the offensive side of the ball in one game, that's unacceptable. You can't win with that no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think people? I alluded to this before the show, and it's fucking annoying when I watch you get interviewed and people are like, "Oh, the Tom thing." Do you think people get how good you were?
Yeah, I don't know. I actually had this conversation with Takeo Spikes, because Takeo is probably one of the best players to never win a ring, and I don't even know if he even got to.
Great guy too.
Great guy. Loved
huge
Takeo.
neck.
Dude,
his neck is enormous.
Dude, Takeo, it was really funny. So we played together in Buffalo, right?
Yeah, okay,
and we played together in Buffalo.
Was Crowell there?
What's that?
Was Crowell there? Linebacker Crowell from Virginia?
Yeah, he was. Yep. But it was really funny. One of my brother's best buddies from Colorado, because my brother played ball at the University of Colorado, walks into his first meeting as a rookie, and he ends up sitting behind Takeo.
Mm-hmm.
And, this dude's a badass, defensive lineman from Colorado. He sits behind Taquillo and he's like, "Yeah, I don't belong here."
Yeah,
because Taquillo just neck traps
the whole thing.
Just
sir, I can't see the film.
Yeah. Can you move your neck to the side so I can see the film, sir? But anyway, I had the conversation with Taquillo, and the thing that gives me solace from that standpoint is the guys that know.
They know.
Right. So you talk to, and again, these we're talking earlier about, my heroes, but guys like, Elway and Marino and Jim Kelly and, these guys that I really look up to, they know, they know. And I don't spend much time thinking about it. But from the standpoint of, what I did with what I was presented with, I had a good career.
It's just, no, you had a great career. Like, you don't have to be like, you had a great fucking career, dude. Like, it's just amazing to me. As a player, I'm always fine with being with reality, whatever the reality was, whatever happened.
Right.
But like, I can't stand being misunderstood.
Yeah.
Like, I can't stand not being understood in context.
Yeah. Right.
You don't know if somebody walks up to me on the street and, you never did this, you never did that. You never watched me play.
Yeah.
You just caught the headline or whatever it was.
You catch the headline or the stat line or whatever it is, and that doesn't often, tell the whole story. But, but that's what it is what it is. And I'll, look, could it have gone better in a lot of ways? Of course it could have, one play here, one play there, and things are radically different. But at the end of the day, man, dude, we got paid to play a game, man. It was freaking awesome. And so I have no bitterness whatsoever about the experience. But I have said this a couple times though, I don't like the fact that a lot of people treat it as if I was just a footnote that was there before Tom. When I retired, I was in the top 10 all time in all the major statistical categories at the time I retired. And, and people treat it like, well, you're just, Wally Pipp before Lou Gehrig. Like that's not really the story.
People are simple in the way they absorb things, man. Like they don't see any nuance in anything. And also people don't watch. Like back then the Pats were not.
Yeah, we weren't on national TV a lot.
It's like a total juxtaposition from what the new Pats were.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we were talking about facilities, the whole thing. And I just think it's important because if there's no you, there's no Tom, there's no new Patriots. Like y'all's group.
Yeah. We changed culture.
Yeah.
Right? And so whether you're talking globally, whether you're talking in a business or whether you're talking within a sports team, changing culture is hard.
Yeah.
And the teams that we were a part of, man, we were young, we were getting after it, and we went from, the team that got the first overall draft pick because they were the worst team, and 2 years later we're in the playoffs, 4 years later we're in the Super Bowl. And so there's a lot of pride, with my teammates that I played with at that time because we changed it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you won the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
So like it's just like it's man, that's football, man. Like just crazy shit happens.
Crazy shit happens.
And teams work it out and like, and like look at what Tom's going through this year.
Yeah.
There's no perfect way to stick the landing in football. Like, it's just like you're so lucky if you can finish your career exactly how you want to finish it. Like,
I mean, the only guy that's ever really, had the walk-off was Elway.
Yeah.
His last game was a Super Bowl championship and world championship and gets to walk away. But other than that, it almost never ends perfectly.
Football always humbles you.
It does, doesn't it?
Like, it really does. And I think that's what guys struggle with so much is like not only the major life change, and we talk about how you stuck the landing with wine and all the stuff you're doing, but I just think like you have to have a healthy ego to play the game.
Yeah.
You have to, or else you'll get eaten alive.
Yeah, for sure.
And so then it's like, hey, maybe things didn't go the way I wanted in this at this stop, and now I got to stop playing or whatever. And guys I think struggle to replace not only the grind, the brotherhood, but also like, turn off the fact that like the person who cares the most about it is you or I.
Yeah.
We're the ones thinking about it. Otherwise, everybody had a great run. Yeah. We're really lucky to play this game, man.
Absolutely.
And I just don't know, like when you retired, just like me or the next guy, did you struggle with retirement?
It was interesting. I started probably, I want to say like year 7 or 8. started to plan for it.
Yeah.
Because you do see the horror stories of guys that really struggle, and you see guys that, and it's really an interesting psychology too. I was kind of pissed when ESPN did the 30 for 30 called Broke, right? It was about, athletes that screw up in retirement. And I was excited to watch it because I thought, okay, this is a really interesting psychology, because you're taking guys that, have always been the superstar at every level.
Yeah.
They've also had extreme structure all the time. Be here, do this, eat this, travel here, stay here. You've had kind of the world at your beck and call. And then you also have money. And then you have the fact that because you have money now, you're a target for everybody. And you put all those things in. And then when it stops, everything stops right away. The money's gone. The adulation's gone. The structure is gone. And you're just sort of like, all right, hey, good luck. Go figure it out. And then you combine that with the fact that we're fundamentally aggressive, risk-taking people, because that's what we do.
Fundamentally, dude.
Yeah, and so now you look at guys who are like, oh, I was great at football. Of course I'm going to be great at this investment, or I'm going to be great at this business, when you don't realize, you fail to realize that, it took a lifetime of work to be great at football.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to be good at business,
right.
But guys don't factor that in. And so also you put all that stuff together, and it's a really interesting psychology.
Yeah.
But instead, when they did the show, they just turned it into an expose of guys that, wasted their money on rims and diamonds.
It's too simple. It's so simple.
And it's
not that simple.
It's not that simple. No,
I'll tell
really
you what, like, it depends on your safety net. Like for me, I made a lot of money playing.
Right.
You made a lot of money playing. 10-year contract.
Yeah.
How fucking crazy is a 10-year contract to think about? It's like a hockey contract.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, before we get into that, 10-year contract, was that unprecedented?
Yeah, it was, but it was also sort of fake. It was
like
a 4-year deal that had a 3-year option that had like another 3-year option, and then the last 3-year option was
that's
never,
something I learned about you,
because
I knew a lot about you, but then I was reading that, I was like, damn, that's like a hockey contract, dude.
Yeah,
like
it was, and it was also, the biggest thing that's changed, over the last, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years, is how much guaranteed money there is.
Yeah.
Because like the contracts back in the day, your signing bonus was your only guarantee, and everything else was, you play to get paid.
Yeah.
And it's, look, it's a shit ton of money, more than ever thought I would ever see, and it was great. But it was just sort of print the big number in the paper, like, well, it's not really that number.
And
it's
then
not
people
really
are like, $100 million man.
I'm
I'm looking at my bank account.
It's not quite. I mean, it's still a lot of money. It was great, but it wasn't $100 million.
I remember when I retired, man, I started thinking of what I was going to do next, right? Because kind of like you, I had started planning too.
Yeah.
And I also, like, when I played, there started to be the concussion stuff was coming out.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm starting to worry.
Yeah.
And that can be a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
It can be. Yeah.
You're like, oh, fuck, something wrong with me?
I can't find my keys. I wonder if it's CT.
Hey, how about my wife can't find anything?
Yeah, no, it's like everybody does this.
Sam Bradford's here. He's one of my best buddies. We were last night. He was like, man, like, how's your dome, man? Like,
right.
I'm like, man, I'm stoned a lot. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
So I forget things.
Yeah.
And I was like, Meg couldn't remember anything. She forgot her purse this morning.
Yeah.
She forgot.
Yeah.
So I'm like, did she play football? Like, but you tricked your mind into thinking, or I'm anxious, or I'm going through some, major life changes. It got you down. Fucking shocker.
That's the way it works. And the interesting thing was that they finally, somebody did the study, right? The way that you're supposed to do science, right? And they compared retired professional football players to the general population. And it turns out we have a lower incidence of suicide. We have a lower incidence of depression. We have a lower incidence of like domestic violence, than the general population. Right. But that doesn't that's not a good enough headline.
Right.
Now that's not, there certainly are guys that have been affected, and that's a risk.
No question.
That's a risk that we all accepted.
Right.
We don't get to lay down on a burning bed and complain we got burned, right? Football's dangerous,
right.
And there's no getting around that. And there certainly are guys that have been affected. No, there's no question about that.
No question. It's real. CT's real. All that stuff's real.
It's all real. I'm not discounting that at all. But the part that I do get frustrated with is like this straight line, played football, so you're going to be depressed and you're going to kill yourself.
I'm with you.
Yeah, it's like that's not, there are a lot of other contributing factors when that kind of stuff happens, and it should never happen. And one of the real positive things that has happened is that we're making it more okay to talk about.
Right.
And that's super important, not just for football, but just for society.
Yeah.
Especially as men, we're like, I'm depressed.
Yeah.
Well, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
I can't go talk to somebody about being depressed, because that makes me, the
weak or whatever.
Weak, yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think that we're getting much better at making it okay to talk about.
Do you think a sports psychologist in the building would have been good for your team or you, like back in the day? Because I'm jealous of guys now. They're sports psychs.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I'd get in my own head, and
sure,
I'd be in a slump looking for a sack. I'm getting paid a ton, and I'm not. 3 games in, I'm not playing. You can get in your head, man. And
yeah, for sure.
I just think there's a whole. I think you make a great point, and I've made this point too. Is like, listen. Look around in society.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like people are doing very well in general.
Yeah. I mean,
but every time a football player has a problem after football, we draw a straight line to that.
Straight line.
And I think it's always, there's nuance and everything. And I think we do discount a lot of the mental health issues that people walking around have and that sort of thing. I think we do discount a lot of that nuance.
Yeah, for sure.
And so,
for sure.
And so it's hard because it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I got out of football and I remember going and immediately being like, I'm gonna start a restaurant.
Right.
Hey, that's the quickest $100,000 I ever burnt in my life.
You might as well just lit it on fire.
Just lit it on fire.
Yeah,
and there were people telling me, they were like, are you sure you want to do this? Why do you want to do this?
Right.
And I'm not an arrogant person, but I'm a hard worker, and I think I can if I set my mind to things, I can do anything, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what football tells you, right? Even though it's not necessarily true. You can work as hard as you want. The guy could be better, faster, stronger, whatever. I've learned that lesson. But, it was a perfect lesson for me. It was like what you said is like, we think we can go do X, Y, Z, and we have the income to say we got to.
Yeah, we got this. And
we got this.
We got this. So, yeah. No,
so wine, though, you do have this, though.
Yeah, but it's also, it was, it's, certainly far from an overnight success.
Yeah.
And I think the most important piece of that's allowed our business to become a successful business is that I actually did humble myself and say, all right, I don't know this. I need to find people that know it and hire the right people and put the right people in place. And so I've been able to surround myself with people that while, technically working for me, were also teaching me.
Yeah.
And then we've had, other advantages, just the fact that, I grew up in the place where the business is. So there's some obvious, kind of strategic advantages there and so on. But yeah, I think I recognized right away that while it was something that I was passionate about and wanted to do, that there was a whole ton of it that I didn't know. And in a lot of cases, I didn't know what I didn't know. Right. So I got to learn what I'm supposed to learn before I can learn that. And now we're 15 years in and I'm still learning. So, but it's become a successful thing. And it's really, really cool though, too, to be in business and realize though, that there is a lot of carryover in terms of the things that allowed, you to be successful as a football player that do translate into business. You got to have a great team around you. You've got to be very mindful about the culture you create.
Right.
You got to have great attention to detail. You've got to plan, and then you've got to be able to embrace adversity. Right. When adversity comes, we've learned in our business, and it's much like it was with ball. Sometimes getting knocked down is the best thing that can happen to you, because that gives you an opportunity to improve. It's hard. It's much harder to improve when you have success.
Yeah.
It's harder to motivate yourself to continue to progress when things are going well. And so for us, we're not trying to fuck anything up, but when we do have adversity, we're like, oh, cool.
Also exposes a weak spot.
Absolutely. Yeah. It shows your blind spot and or what in that particular place, or it, brings to the forefront, something that maybe you'd glossed over because the other part of the business was working successfully. So you didn't look at that piece. So it's those things have been really cool, and we have a really competitive team.
Yeah.
Like most everybody on our team played organized sports at some level.
Yeah.
That's not part of the interview process, by the way, but it ends up kind of gravitating that way, because then you have people on your team that understand the team is bigger than yourself, and sacrifice. And if you only do your exact job description and that's it, you're not going to be successful. So we've got a lot of people that are wired that way, and that makes it easier.
That helps, man. And you get to go a lot of cool places.
Also get to go a lot of cool places. It turns out people drink good wine in good places.
Right?
So
Isn't that funny?
My wife gave me some shit a couple years ago. I told her I was going on this cat skiing trip up in British Columbia for work, right? She just rolls her eyes at me. She's like, "That's a complete boondoggle. You're full of shit."
Yeah.
But I went up there and I came back and told her, like, I sold a lot of wine. People that go on heli skiing trips like to drink good wine. So it actually was work. Now, it was enjoyable, but it was work.
People in the south of France love wine.
Absolutely. Amen.
People
Amen.
in the Amalfi Coast love wine.
Amen. That's research and development over there.
Yeah, dude. We got to make sure all these places like good wine.
You got to go. Got to go see how they're doing it in France, and then we're gonna have to go see how they do it in Greece and northern Italy, and So that part of it is really, really fun. And I like to travel.
Yeah.
We talked earlier. We're empty nesters now, so my wife and I have the freedom to go now, where before, everything was structured around the kids and their sports and activities and all that stuff. And so now we're doing a lot of the travel that we postponed when the kids were young, and we're having a ball.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
man.
it's really fun.
You do seem like you're having fun. And the one thing that my wife actually, because I was like, man, find me one fun thing to ask Drew. And she was like, oh, I found a fun fact about Drew. This is like 30 minutes ago.
I'm scared.
No, something about Mary. Did they offer you that role?
They did.
The Brett Favre role? You almost took the Brett Favre role?
So the way that it worked, Cameron Diaz was a big Niners fan. And so her first choice, she wanted Steve Young. And Steve Young was like, Mormon. I can't be in something about Mary. And then the Fairley brothers are New England guys.
Yeah.
And so they called me next.
Yeah.
And, I was in Montana. I just didn't want to go. And then I also was just coming off of like the one, like, I don't know, crazy off the field thing that happened. I went to an Everclear concert and jumped off the stage and got sued. It was.
Did you land on somebody?
Yeah. Well, Max jumped off the stage. He landed on somebody, Max Lane. So, stage diving is for the little 140-pound lead singer. It's not. It's
for 6'5", 240.
Not for, yeah. And so I, got sued for that, and it was a big deal. And so the combination of the fact that I just didn't want to leave my Montana place in the summertime, and that I was just coming off of this thing that was kind of bumpy, I turned it down, and they gave it to Favre.
Yeah, Favre.
They gave it to Favre. And by the way, terrible actor, dude. I would have been way better in that role. Brett, I hope you hear this. You're just a shitty actor. I would have been way better in that role.
I think you would have been better. What was Drew Bledsoe almost after football, besides Brett Favre in Something About Mary? Did you almost do something else?
We did some, and again, ties right back to our conversation earlier. We put together a group and we were doing some investing and some of that stuff, and it turns out, as we talked about earlier, didn't really know what I was doing. Yeah. In retrospect, if we were going to go that route, what I should have done is just gone and signed on with somebody else and just worked for somebody for 4 or 5 years, and then done that. And so we did that for a little bit. We didn't totally screw it up, but it also wasn't a huge success. Had a coffee company for a little bit.
Did you really?
Yeah, that was sort of business school, mostly on what not to do.
Yeah.
But again, we didn't lose a meaningful amount of money doing it, but it also wasn't a huge success.
Life experience.
Yeah. But the big thing I did right after I retired, I kind of said yes to everything.
Yeah.
Mostly to figure out what I liked. Yeah. And I got too busy for a while. And now I'm, right.
Fucking A, dude.
Yeah. It's like, so all of a sudden you said yes to 10 different things, and all of a sudden you're being pulled 10 different directions. Yeah. And then over time, learn to simplify and focus mostly just on the wine business right now. And it's really fun. The business is successful. It's dynamic. It's changing. It's, all of those things. and then do some charity stuff and all of that. But in terms of my business time, my work time, I focus mostly on the wine.
Before we go, where can we find out more about your wine, your wineries?
Just go to doubleback.com.
Okay,
So
cool.
the story on the Doubleback name, by the way, people have asked if that's a football name. You got quarterback, halfback, fullback, doubleback. Like, no, that's not it. There were a lot of, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, there were a lot of like jock wines or celebrity wines out there, and most of them were really not very good.
Yeah.
And the reason was that a lot of them were just kind of endorsement deals. And so we wanted to make sure that we weren't attaching ourselves to that stigma of jock wines. So we wanted the story to be the real story, which is I grew up in Walla Walla, got to go live out, my childhood dream and play football, and then doubled back and came back home. So the story's about returning home. That's
cool. Yeah, I was gonna say, double back. That's not even a football term. People.
No, but
it's a pony formation.
You can imagine how people would think that, right?
Yeah, hey, absolutely.
What's a double back play? And
that sounds exotic.
Yeah, it sounds exotic.
Something Bill runs. Drew Bledsoe, thanks for your time, man.
Yeah,
really
Chris,
appreciate
great to see you, man. Best to you, best to your kids, best to your family, and man, your family, and especially your folks.
Good people.
They're good peeps, your dad and you fall into the same category also. It's just so interesting to be around like guys like you, guys like your dad, who are the baddest of the badasses on the field, and then off the field, like the kindest people.
Well, there's plenty of being mean on the field. We can leave that there. You know what I mean?
You go do that there, get it all out of your system, and then you come off the field.
Man, life is good, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Life is good, man. And we got to get a beer in Montana. Or a glass of wine.
We can do both.
We're pretty close to each other. Yeah, this is funny. And I've never really run into India out there.
I know. It's only about a half hour. So
it's crazy.
We'll meet in the middle somewhere, and or I'll bring some wine down to your guys' place and hang out. But it's great to see you. Great to hang out a little bit, and just have always just greatly admired you and your whole family.
Thanks, man.
Pretty cool.
Likewise.
Yeah,
likewise,
for sure.
bro.
Cheers.
See you in Montana. Listen to the full podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast streaming platforms. Wherever you want to get the podcast, you can get the podcast. Pretty simple. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Podcasts get pretty wild. This is real tame.